Hello, everybody. As people start entering the room, we will get started in just a few moments here.
Hi, all.
Got our good friend Marnie Stockman here. How you doing today, Marnie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. It's pre-Friday. It's Friday.
It's Friday. It's Friday Eve.
Exactly. So you have any big plans for the weekend?
Not this weekend. Next
No.
weekend, my kids are coming up. Hopefully, my sister's not listening because we're surprising her that they're flying up for her 50th birthday celebration. So
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we actually have I think a little bit of a break this weekend. My daughter last couple weekends has had softball, which many think, well, you're in Michigan, softball in the dead of winter. It's all indoor, thankfully.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's on many teams. She's on a travel league. She's on the high school team, and then little league. But this is for high school, and it's actually just games that they're doing ahead of time. Just practice. Yeah.
I wish they had indoor when I was in high school. So I played center field. And let me tell you, when it's freezing bitter cold out, no one's hitting the ball to center field, right? So I would have gloves inside my glove. I have my varsity jacket under my jersey because the requirement was the jersey was the outer gear. So I would pack as much clothing as humanly possible between me and my jersey to stand out there, jump around in center field, trying to unnumb my feet.
Yeah, we, for the Little League, where our Little League fields are, it's like in a low level where it's a wind tunnel. And perfect. So it's extremely cold in the springtime when we play there. But so being inside is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I would think.
Can't complain. We do have a tournament coming up in Indiana in the next couple of weeks, and that will be inside as well. So
big time travel ball.
Yeah, exactly. So we're here to talk about momentum. We're going to talk about best practices around metrics, movement, and management.
Yeah.
To determine if your business reviews are driving momentum. And as I mentioned, we've got our good friend Marnie Stockman, she's the CEO of Lifecycle Insights. And Marnie, as always, we love having you here to share your knowledge and your passion for helping MSPs be better. And so thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. So we titled it "Don't Get Run Over, Get Momentum." So I think this webinar idea kind of came to me from a conversation that some of our partners had. We were at Evolve and working with some folks, and our partners invited us to have a conversation, and they wanted to tell us about kind of a problem that they were having. So I want to share that problem and the solution that we came up with. And then we've shared this on our partner weekly workshops and are really coming to drive some metrics around these pieces. So I thought I'd bring it to the table because it's not like you need Lifecycle Insights to drive these metrics, but you should be tracking them somewhere. So the problem that they brought to us was they had a longtime partner that always paid their bills, right? They weren't particularly fussy. They had, when tickets were in, they got resolved, that type of thing. And out of the blue, they told them that they were leaving and turned. And they said it really blindsided them. So they went back and did an autopsy and took a look and said, if we'd been paying closer attention, would we have seen this coming? Because they truly felt blindsided. And they took a look at all the things and looked at what I've got written on the screen, the timing of how they worked with them. How had they done in terms of their solutions? Like how aligned was that partner with their stack? How were we communicating with them? And then how much had they adopted the solutions that they actually had? And so when they went back and looked, no one indicator would have sent up a red flag. But when they looked at all 4 of them, they thought, yeah, we should have seen this coming. In
Sure.
terms of timing, they said we had conversations with them, but they were a large enough client that they should have been doing quarterly business reviews, and they'd really only met with them once the previous year. So even though they had a business review, they were not on cadence for the expectation for a partner of the size that they were. In terms of solutions, they used most of their services, but were not increasing the rate that they were using their services. And we thought this was very interesting. So they were not accepting any other recommendations for new products in the past year or 2, right? So an interesting type of stagnation. They were still paying their recurring revenue. Their recurring revenue had even gone up because they had a natural escalator in their contract, so they were paying more, but they had not approved any additional projects in the past year or 2. Their communication was only one way. So it was only when the MSP reached out to them, and it was cordial, but there were never any real actionable takeaways. And then lastly, when they looked at adoption, they had implemented a project to get them going on one of their tools, but had never really added value to them. So they hadn't adopted it in a way where the company was getting value and driving their business outcomes from it. And so it really kind of just stalled. I suspect you hear these stories all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think, first and foremost, kudos to them to say, like you said, let's do the autopsy. Let's do a deep dive into determining what went wrong here. What could we have done better? Because often I think there's a mindset of, it's not us, it's them. And, you have to take ownership. You have to look at it and to see, could we have done something better? Because you don't want to have that copy and paste it. You don't want to replicate, a scenario like that.
And that's what they're worried about, because this one was a matter of being blindsided, right? And again, when they dug in, they could see why. But they said, if we could track this, and they were talking to us because we have a lot of these metrics in place. They said, we want to do one better than just identifying risk of churn. What we would like to do is see with which clients we're gaining traction and have momentum. So the solution we came to was really momentum, right? And what does that look like? So we've spent a good bit of time internally and with some partners talking about what momentum is for an MSP and what it looks like. So first, I wanted to start with the definition of momentum. So momentum is a force allowing a business to grow faster through a series of events. So if you break that apart into the 3 chunks, first, it's a force. So that is your people, process, and product, right? Like that is the power that an MSP has in order to work on their business. So next, those forces help the business grow. Grow in what way? Increased revenue, increased profits, approved recommendations. Let's think about what our partner told us, that had they recognized the fact that their partner had not accepted any of their recommendations in the past couple of years, that would have triggered for them. Additional stack alignment, right? Are they involved enough with us to believe the value of our services, and they're growing to be, more aligned with our products and services? And then how about the power of operational efficiencies, right? Are our partners and is our team internally seeing efficiencies within the way we're doing this work? And how does that happen? Through a series of events. And what are those series of events called? QBRs, TBRs, SBRs, EBRs, whatever, business review, right? Some meeting with the client. I'll still say QBR because the Q can stand for quality instead of quarterly, because we actually believe that they don't need to be done quarterly for everyone. But just like our partner said, if they should be done quarterly for that client, if you miss, that's a sign that you're losing momentum. Right. So if that's what momentum, for first, any thoughts on this when we split out momentum, the definition as I've defined it? You like that, hate it, think, yeah, no, that makes sense.
I love it. I mean, because, if you're not moving, you're sitting there, you're stagnant, you're complacent. And, when the client looks at that monthly payment to you, especially if it's sizable, in their mind, they're wondering, okay, what are we doing here? The movement is us writing a check and giving it to them. What are they doing for us? Even though you're doing things behind the scenes and you're doing everything to keep things running, that's the thing, is if you're not having that regular discussion with them and the communication with them, they feel as if nothing's happening, even though you're doing so much behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
You're making things happen because, we've all had this scenario where client says, I keep paying you guys monthly and I don't know if it really is doing anything. I don't know if it's really worth it. But all the things
working, why am I paying you? Nothing's working. Why am I paying you? Kind of argument.
Right. Exactly. And, and again, as managed services providers, our job, contrary to the break fix world, in the break fix world, you sit back, you wait for your phone to ring, and that's how you drive revenue.
Yeah.
Well, in the managed services world, it's all about proactiveness. It's about doing things behind the scenes to ensure that they don't have to call us. Or if there is a scenario that we're calling them before they call us, that we're getting the proper monitors to be able to say, hey, just wanted to let you know, it looks like that your internet dropped, and these are the things that we're looking into, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But if that conversation is never happening, if you're not having regular conversations so that they know all the things that you're doing behind the scenes to make things, continuing to run for them and for them to have the momentum, then they're going to be scratching their heads. And without that, we talk about being blindsided. You shouldn't feel blindsided because you weren't having the conversation.
Right. So that brings us to, what does it look like and how do we keep ourselves from being blindsided? Coming from education, one of the quotes we always talked about is, what is inspected is what is expected, right? And so
Right.
What are we inspecting? So when we really broke it down and said, what does momentum look like? We came up with these 4 things. 1, business reviews are happening, right? And not just that, but they're happening on the right schedule for the cadence appropriate to that client, with the right people. Are the right humans in the room? They found out that the business reviews they had done for the client that churned had never actually involved the CEO or the decision maker. So the project manager showed up, but there was no real connection with the CEO. Do those right people accept recommendations, right? Is there movement on their technology, or is everything stale? And in doing so, are they getting more closely aligned? Are they increasing alignment to the stack? So you kind of said this, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there, right? Will Rogers is the one that actually said that, but I love that quote because it's really progress over perfection. If they aren't moving, if they're stale, there's a threat there. And let's face it, you're never going to be 100% secure, stable, and supportable, because there are always new threat actors on the scene, right? All of the things we know about risk, we always just need to be moving the needle and doing better, as do our clients. So we really need to track those metrics. So I'm going to show a couple of slides on some ways we like to take a look at it and talk about it. Again, this can be done lots of ways. And the first one is, we've mentioned it, are QBRs happening at the right cadence for each client? So I've got a segmentation chart, and Dan, I think you and I have talked about this before, right? We really need to look at a client's value versus the effort level that it takes to deliver services to that client, to see which quadrant they fall in, right? In that top right quadrant, I always tell people to think of your most complex, but probably largest contract that you service, right? Maybe it's a HIPAA compliant client or a Department of Defense, somebody that's high value to your company and but probably high effort as well. They would go in the top right quadrant. In the bottom right quadrant, high value, low effort. These would be your favorite clients, right? They're very profitable. They're easy to support. because they are profitable. Bottom left, low value, low effort. So this, I always call the tech touch quadrant, right? These are the ones that should get marketing as opposed to phone calls for the majority of the check-ins. And then maybe once a year, get a business review. And then the top left quadrant, high effort, low value. So I guarantee if you hover over one of these clients and see their name for yourself, you'd say like, I don't like working with that client, right? And why don't you like working for them? Because they're not paying you what they're worth. They're sticky, squeaky, and not fun to work with. So when we look at what to do about these, I've kind of broken it out into who gets a quarterly, monthly quadrant, touch, quadrant A up top right, the high touch, then the lower right, mid touch. Those should be semi-annual or annual. C, tech touch, right? Like I said, automation. You've got a marketing machine working for you, remarket to your existing clients. And then it's funny in quadrant D, that's low value, high effort. They need to move, right? Somebody just sent me an email this morning and said, Marnie, have you read the book Pumpkin Plan? And I have read the book Pumpkin Plan, but the book Pumpkin Plan talks about pruning those blossoms that are not going to turn into valuable pumpkins, right? And so what does that look like for that segment? It means you either need to renegotiate their contract so that they land in quadrant A. You need to convince them to get rid of the machines from 1902 that are causing all of their ticket pains, right? So that they can be more automated and go to quadrant C, where they're the ones that are not good client fits and they get fired. The same client that I was talking, the same partner of Lifecycle Insights that I was mentioning earlier, that came to us with the notion of momentum, said that over the last year, they have intentionally pruned 18 clients. And they have more than doubled their ARR. So let's think about that. Yeah. They've more than doubled their ARR and their profitability as well. And they have pruned 18 clients because they were not good fits. So they lived in this quadrant, causing pain, taking a lot of time that their support team could use to support clients that do want to get traction and help them gain momentum,
Yeah, and and the thing is, it's a difficult decision because you're looking at it saying, well, there's revenue coming in. Yeah, but revenue doesn't equal happiness. Revenue doesn't equal
profitability. Yeah,
profitability, quality of the morale of your staff. There's so many components.
Yeah,
and there's a point where you just have to say, you have to trust the process, right?
Yep.
And the fear of the unknown of, wait a minute, I'm dropping $2,500 a month. Am I shooting myself in the foot? No. It might not seem, especially for the first time, it might not seem like this is a really good decision. But once you do that the first time and you start to see the value of it, then all of a sudden that light bulb's like, now I get it. Now it makes sense. And now I'm able to spend, much more quality time with those that get it.
Yep.
Those that want to, those that have the passion about technology, the acceptance of why technology is critical in helping their business get momentum, right? Because truly what we're doing now is, we have to focus on shifting the conversation from the blinky lights to those business conversations. We say time and time again, because the only way to get them excited and to really embrace technology is to tie it back to their business and to tie it back to their customer experience, the customer workflow, and let's face it, the bottom line and how it's going to impact their bottom line.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every time I hop on a call, whether it's a demo or an adoption call with one of our clients, I will always ask, like, what brought you to the party today, right? What made you reach out to Lifecycle Insights and want to have a conversation, or what problem are you having that we can solve for you? And just this morning, the person I was talking to said, well, the biggest problem we're having now is we are trying to stop both customer and employee churn. So they're trying to get better retention there. And it's interesting in talking about that quadrant D and the pumpkin plan. we did come to the conclusion that firing some of their clients would improve employee retention,
Yeah.
because you can only get yelled at for so long by the same folks without anyone having your back. And by having your back, by saying, but yeah, you're not going to be our customer anymore if this is the way we're going to engage, that gets to be demoralizing, right? So it's
And
interesting that it impacts both.
it eats up so much energy, because those conversations are, you won't believe what customer X said to us today. You won't believe what customer X, did today. The customer who doesn't believe in, any level of business continuity.
Yep.
When, and they're always the one that say, hey, if things were to go down, we would survive. Things would be fine. But when things go down, they're like, it's the end of the world. And so those are just drains on your business, on the morale, and it just eats up time. And let's face it, there's only so many hours in the day, and the more time that we're wasting on, this customer, versus, hey, you wouldn't believe, guess what we were able to do for client A. And they accepted us moving forward with this particular project. They called us and said, we were able to improve our customer workflow. Our customers already are noticing a difference, and they're delighted with what we were able to do and how we're able to help them. And those, hey, if we have to talk about those are awesome.
Yeah, those
right?
are motivating for sure. Yeah. So I encourage folks to look at these segments and really define who lands in which segment. And here's the tricky part. People will tell me all the time, well, I should do them quarterly, but I don't. And when I ask, how are you keeping track of that? They often don't have a good answer. So, I mentioned earlier the quote, what is inspected is what is expected. If you don't set for yourself, I'm going to meet with this client quarterly, and that means I'm going to start in March and I'm going to have another one in June and have another one in September, you're not setting yourself up for success, because it's so easy to just be busy. Right? It's not like you have a shortage of things to do and you're sitting around looking for work. If you don't say, this is the cadence at which I'm going to set communications with this clients, it'll push, and a month will go by and 2 months will go by. So you really do need to establish a cadence for each. And then you need to track, did they happen? One of our partners will talk about the fact that they've done the analysis, and there is a direct correlation between number of business reviews that they have and number of quotes that they deliver and close. So when you force yourself to do the business reviews, you are in fact driving the engine and building the momentum for additional projects and sales, which you kind of spoke to, right?
Because if you don't schedule the good busy, if you don't schedule good busy, the bad busy will take over. Plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've said, right, our business reviews happening, then the next question to ask yourself is, with the right people, right? And I mentioned our partner said that they'd done business reviews, but when they looked back, it was the project manager that had been showing up. Now, for some of your clients, this might be the same human, right? They might be, the CEO might also be the CTO, the CFO, and the point of contact on site, in which case, when you meet with them, you can check off all 4 of these, right? But if you talk to a project manager who is a gatekeeper, or the CEO hasn't chosen to engage, there could be trouble there. I often talk about the fact that you need to hit the red button of help when you haven't chatted with the CEO in a long time and you hear there's a change in leadership, right? Because the new CEO could easily bring in their IT department, their favorite managed service provider. So if you don't have all 4 of these folks on the room, you can't help them move the needle. The chief financial officer is the one doing the budgeting. And while I say budgeting, I'm going to throw this out. The managed service provider is the one entity that is most able to deliver a true financial forecast for technology for the business.
Yep.
Chief financial officer does not know when all of their assets are retiring, right? When they're going to need more licensing for new employees, when their Meraki contracts are coming due, right? When their line of business application comes up. The managed service provider is the one person that's really well suited to deliver all of that information. So if they're delivering that to the project manager and the project manager is not delivering that to the financial team, then things get lost in the crack and projects don't get approved. So I feel like all of these folks, even if those roles land on two people's shoulders, need to be in the room.
And, I give an example of, the CEO not being involved. I've been in the business for 22 years now. I know I only look 29, but yeah.
You and me both.
Exactly. But we have, there was one particular client that ultimately the relationship was always with the CFO, always with the CFO. He was a decision maker. He was their former IT person, the default IT person. So naturally, we were always having conversations with him. Our QBRs were with him, never were with the CEO. CEO was never involved. That was a bad mistake on my part, because one day we got a call and they said that we are going to move on. We're moving on to another company. Long story short here, I found out that the CEO was on a golf league. On that golf league was an owner of an IT company, and enough said. That's what happened.
Yep.
So I had no relationship with him. And, even though the relationship with the CFO was rock solid, we were doing great things for them.
Yep.
The CEO is the final decision maker.
Yep.
And, his name was part of their company name. And I failed on that. And so it might seem like, hey, I've got this person involved. This person is, helping us, guide and move forward. But at the end of the day, the true decision maker, the CEO, was not part of it. And you need them to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes all four of them to hit the next piece, which is get recommendations to be accepted, right? If you're making remediation plans for things that you have found, if you don't get approval on it, again, stagnation. So here's a screenshot of kind of a Kanban board of the recommendations you might bring to the table. And it's interesting. We have a couple different views of this. So we also have a quarterly view that'll let you drag and drop it, and it updates the budget automatically. But one of the things that our partners really like about this particular view, first, it gives you the view of what you've done for them, right? What's completed, what's in progress. It gives you a quick visual of where everything stands, but it also puts front and center what's declined. All right, one column to the right of center, right? But it gives you, okay, these are the two projects that you've declined, and maybe repeatedly, right? So you can see the dates of when they were scheduled to be done, et cetera. So our partner has talked to us about really wanting to track stale recommendations, especially stale recommendations associated to their core product offering. It's one thing if you've offered them services around some of their website updates versus MFA, right? Like those are two entirely different, maybe not to your end client, but in terms of the risk that they could cause to their own company and therefore to yours, is if MFA is stalled and stale as a recommendation for 3 quarters, that would be a sign that they're not on board with your best practices and standards. And so I think that's important. If we're tracking who's, are they accepting my recommendations, et cetera, because that's how we're moving the needle, that they're more aligned to our best practices.
Yep. And I'll say too, that particular report, for lack of a better term, it's pretty, it's pretty, and that is very uncharacteristic of what most MSPs, IT professionals are providing to their clients, if they're providing anything. And, and sometimes you think, well, hey, I threw something together in a spreadsheet, it's functional. Do you want it to be functional or do you want it to be pretty? I want it to be both. you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, 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 absolutely. So we used to have, well, we still do have the view of this in a list view. But our partners tell us that they like to present right from here to be able to drag and drop. Like I said, the other view we have is by quarter. So as they move it around, the client can see the budget update on the fly. So they can really make the decision of, okay, that does make sense. The other piece of putting it in the quarterly view argument would be, if you make the conversation go along the lines of, Dan, when we've talked about why MFA is important, when would it make sense for us to schedule the MFA project, right? As opposed to, here's a recommendation, do you want it, yes or no? Right? You've taken the yes or no off the table and you've said when. And by saying when does it make sense to do that, you're not really giving them the option for never, right? They have to make bold. People don't really like conflict, and that's a bold statement to say, well, never, Dan, I don't ever want to do MFA. For the record, none of us ever want to do MFA. It's a huge pain in the behind, but the reality of it is that is what keeps us safe. And so therefore, when are we going to get this project done is the way you need to have that conversation. And those pieces and parts, as they accept the recommendations, should increase your stack alignment. So Paul Dipple, who was of ConnectWise fame for his assessments and benchmarking the industry, said that there are two questions that drive operational maturity for MSPs and therefore their valuation. And the two are you delivering quarterly business reviews to all of your clients? What percentage of your client base are you delivering business reviews for? And the second was, what percentage of your client base is fully aligned to your stack? So as you look at the stack and services that you're offering, and you can see, I've got the screenshot below where you can see tags where we have both standard services and ancillary. The ancillary, not as critical, right? Whether or not they're using your CSAT tool is not as relevant as whether or not they're using your preferred firewall, right? But that alignment piece is critical, and we should be able to track that over time and show growth.
Exactly. Yeah, and one other thing I want to jump, when you were on the previous one of which quarter does it fall in and what is the timing?
Yeah.
I've been a firm believer of being in the middle between a soft sell and a hard sell, but there are some things that, especially when it comes down to security, there shouldn't be any compromise. We have been, I guess we have been tagged, we've been assigned, we have been entrusted to ensure that we're keeping their technology safe and secure. And there are some things that just should not be an option. So that's critical. So when you have that conversation of when does it make sense, you're then not giving them an option of, hey, Mr. Customer, do you really want MFAs? Oh, you don't? Okay. So maybe I'll talk to you about it again. But you probably won't, because, you basically let them drive, be in the driver's seat there.
The way you said that reminds me of folks who will say like, oh no, MFA, it's fun, right? Like, don't try to sell it for what it is. This is best practice for a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's no part of it that's going to be fun. It is like your vegetables. We're going to do this, right? It needs to be done.
Exactly. And Mr. Customer, we all want things to be easier for us. We don't want to have to enter in another password, enter in a one-time password. But the easier we make it on us, the easier we make it on bad actors, and allowing them to leverage that. Yeah,
absolutely. So once we've tied all of these four pieces together, right? Then the question is, after you've got a moment in time, the movement toward progress matters. Again, progress over perfection. And how do you know when you have momentum? It's when you see movement on your numbers, right? So here's kind of a stack alignment report showing point in time. I better go have a conversation with Hogwarts. There's a lot of red there. If I toggle it, I can see how aligned they are to my stack. But that's also opportunity, right? And to be able to track toward that, I think is super important. And not only is the movement over time important, But the question of like, how do we manage this? The people, the process, and the product. How do you keep that momentum going? And here I bring back my favorite quote, right? What is inspected is what is expected. How are we tracking to say that we're doing or not doing what we said we were going to do? So I think that's really like, that's kind of like the conclusion of this is, are we tracking this across account managers, across account groups, by segment, right? If that top right group is stale and stagnant, and there are high value, high effort customers, that's a threat to our business, right? Are there folks in that top left quadrant that are causing us a lot of time and angst, that are dragging our momentum down? To your point, those are a huge morale killer. So if we got rid of some of those, right, does that actually, like, losing weight will help increase momentum? So if they're just dragging you down, time to get rid of them and kind of move the needle.
Absolutely. And all of this stuff, I mean, when we look at all the things we need to do, a lot of times you think it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
You can find tools like Lifecycle Insights to make that easier, but it still is going to require the effort, and it's going to require you to be on your business versus in your business. Right. And I know it's cliche, but it's reality. You have to be on your business, and putting these type of things in front of your clients is showing them how you are on your business, how you are a true partner with them. And it separates you from it being a partnership compared to more of a transactional client vendor relationship. Yeah. We don't want those transactional client vendor relationships. We want true partnerships, so that they don't think twice about why they're doing business with us.
Yeah.
It's never a question. And if it is questioned internally, it's easily combated, it's easily overcome, that what the reasons are. If they have to think back about, okay, what has Dan done for me today? And they have to really spend some time digging, there's a problem, versus being able to right away say, these are the things, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is what they've done. This is how it's helped us move our business forward, because we are so much more than doing password resets.
Yeah.
We're helping them drive their business through the use of technology.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's mission critical. And again, if they recognize that, then there's no question about the stale, like we haven't had the communications, all of those pieces tie back into what you just said. If they can wake up and understand what Dan brings to the table for them, there's no risk there, right? You've got a good solid relationship that you're tracking, and it is work. You mentioned how to differentiate your business. So there was a study by Gartner that said businesses expect 85% of their relationships with their enterprise partners, of which managed service providers would be one, to be through automation notification technology, but 15% would be through the engagement and the customer relationship. So that's the human element. That is what you're doing in the business reviews. That is what you're doing in a phone call, in the communications. So 15% of your business is what is differentiating your business from everyone else, because the rest of the technology pieces are somewhat commoditized, right? You may in fact have a better firewall, but I will beg you to try to explain that to a non-technical CEO, the difference between your firewall and someone else's firewall, right? It's just a hard battle to win. But if you can show how, what you said, you're driving business outcomes for them and eliminating risk, and they understand that and they have that trust in you, that moves the needle for them.
Absolutely.
So I just have one more slide. Would love for folks to, I could geek out on customer success, customer engagement, QBRs all day, every day. So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn because I'm the only Marnie Stockman out there. So that makes it simple. But I also threw a coupon code in here. If anybody's listening and would like to give Lifecycle Insights a whirl, Everything MSP has a $50 a month for the first 3 months off coupon, just for chiming in and listening. So nice. I wanted to make sure I threw that up before we wrapped up.
Absolutely. And that's a great thing. I appreciate you offering that to our group. If that's not a one more reason, other than all the value
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you provide, it's just one more thing to push you over. So it really, when we talk about customer success, you have to have a passion for it, and you got to have a passion for wanting to do well for your customers, because it's not sustainable to think that you can do things all in that automated fashion. Hey, I'll just deliver a report to them. I'll send, a stock report out of our RMM and call it good, and think that that's going to take care of it. Because again, that's just not enough. That human element has such an impact. We are people, right? I mean, people buy from people,
Yeah.
people don't buy from technology. I mean, there is some of that, but not in our business.
Yeah.
And and we're talking about one of the most critical things in their business to help drive them forward, other than human resources. And you want to be able to have those conversations about technology, so that the decisions that they're making, there's solid business cases around it. Because implementing technology just for the sake of technology doesn't make any sense. But when you align that with their business goals and objectives, it's a win-win. And you can hit not only a home run but a grand slam. So
Like that's a solid wraparound from starting the conversation with softball to a grand slam at the end. That's
exactly.
well played.
Exactly. And I did that without even thinking about it.
Yeah,
So
no, a true professional.
there you go. Well, as always, Marnie, thank you so much for your time. Everybody take a look at that last slide. Reach out to Marnie on LinkedIn. Visit their website, sign up for the trial, put in that Everything MSP code so you can take advantage of that special offer. Marnie, any parting words?
No, other than thanks for having me, and have a good one.
Yeah, you too as well. And we'll talk to you soon. Everybody, thank you for being here. Take care, everyone.